Did you guys get a chance to watch that NoClip documentary on Arkane Studios?
I did not, but I watched the first 5 minutes, but I just haven't had a chance yet. I want to. I want to learn about LMNO, and I want to learn about the Half-Life stuff. But so please, you watched it, I'm sure. So
I did. Yeah, I was really blown away by the entire thing. I mean, NoClip has been just gangbusters, an amazing patron over there. Please check them out if you haven't. And I just loved seeing Danny O'Dwyer on Twitter be so proud of this thing. Because, like he's cranked out so many great documentaries that they're solid and the community seems to love them, but it's that extra layer when he's breaking news. And, the Patreon's not about breaking news, but it just helps get so many more eyeballs on this thing. So you could just feel that weight of like him being so happy, being a huge Half-Life fan in particular, of please world, appreciate how crazy this is that we get to see all of this footage for Ravenholm, which was the Half-Life game that Arkane Studios over there in Lyon, France was working on for a while. And I always thought that, because I've been to Arkane Austin twice and Lyon once, so I'm pretty familiar with their history overall. So there's a certain amount of like, okay, we're going to see the history of Arkane, got it. But I think there's so many new details here. And the amazing thing is the push for getting that footage from other publishers. Like the fact that people trust Danny O'Dwyer enough and NoClip as an organization enough, combined with Bethesda owning Arkane being cool enough to make the push for like, hey, in this history of Arkane Studios thing, we should actually reach out to Valve, see if we can reveal all this Ravenholm footage, or reach out to EA, see if we can reveal all this LMNO footage. I mean, there's so many of those hurdles where, while at Game Informer visiting Arkane, we would ask, I'd ask so many times, like, hey, do you have a build of The Crossing running somewhere here? That crazy Source Engine game that's all about cross-player, a fusion of single-player and multiplayer? And he's like, yeah, we got a build, but yeah, no way you're going to be able to see it. No way we can show that. And so just the idea of this going that extra layer and people being like, yeah, you know what? It helps a little bit that they're not there to highlight a certain game. It's not like NoClip's like, hey, this is all about promoting Deathloop. You know what I mean? In terms of the focus, and instead just saying we're here about highlighting and celebrating the entire history of the studio. And then at that point, Bethesda PR is apparently cool enough to help, as Danny put it on Twitter, to try and reach out to these other studios and get EA in particular to release that LMNO footage from the Spielberg project is just mind-boggling. Because back at 1UP, I remember Matt Leone had an article that kind of outlined what was going on, and there had some of that test footage in there. But in this documentary, then, you get to see the super rough early gameplay of showing off this truck stop level that Arkane had built, where you're escorting this alien, trying to get her from one side of the country to the other. But it was really, really fun to see, because you get to see like them attempting melee combat, because Spielberg said that there couldn't be guns in the game. A lot of stuff like that. But it was incredible, and just a huge accomplishment from that team over there, that they're able to crack open the seal on a little bit more of the game industry and reveal these projects. The Half-Life stuff, Kyle, there's so much more there than you would think. Like, you think a couple glimpses would do it justice, but like Danny knows what he's doing, and he cuts to black, has like the classic Half-Life intro, and then just shows like the beginning of the Ravenholm game, which was, they say, like roughly about a year away from finishing, but it is more together than you'd think. And then they show just an extended gameplay chunk of this scrapped Half-Life game, which I thought was a separate project from the one that Warren Spector had talked about back when we launched the video version of the Game Informer show, and Tim Turry and I kind of rebooted it, and we talked to Warren Spector, and he shed some details on the Half-Life project that he was working on at Junction Point, which is all about a magnet gun, or centered around this concept of a magnet gun.
Yeah, and that was, we kind of all assumed that was episode 3. And but that's not.
He made it seem like it was just kind of like a side episode. And then I always thought that Ravenholm was a separate thing. But then the way the story actually goes, apparently, according to the documentary, is that, once the Warren Spector project crashed, then they sent that build over to Arkane. Arkane kind of built upon that to create this Half-Life episode, which wasn't episode 4. It was just an episode, and however Valve wanted to label it, they would be cool with. But it was a lot of dealing with like electricity and creating like electromagnetic systems and networks to like connect different things. And It looked much more horror focused. There are monkeys running around attacking you and stuff like that. As a huge Half-Life fan, Kyle, I'd be very curious to see what you think about it.
Yeah, I need to go watch it for sure.
Yeah, it's super cool. Definitely give that a look and think about supporting NoClip over there, because if they're doing this, it's just I don't think people appreciate how tough it is to get a publisher to be cool and be transparent like that, especially when it comes to two or multiple different publishers having to communicate to let this footage be released. It's just a monumental achievement. And so please check that out. If you enjoyed this clip from the MinnMax Show podcast, we think you'll like the full show too. You can find it by subscribing to MinnMax's YouTube channel or on your favorite podcast app. Any help spreading the word to keep our whole indie operation here running is appreciated. We're here for and because of the wonderful MinnMax community, so you're welcome to join.